Hello and welcome to the special Christmas edition, I suppose, of the Chute Show. And I only say that because we're going to see Tim Don's Christmas sweater in a minute. This week's episode is brought to you by EO SwimBETTER, Super League Triathlon's official swim technology partner. Now, EO SwimBETTER is like a power meter, but for your swim. We all love the data, measuring both force and direction. And I can tell you after racing on the weekend, I need the direction one. It provides unique insight that can radically accelerate your progress. And obviously, if you want to accelerate something, may as well be radically. Through improved techniques, so improve your efficiency in the swim as you save energy for the bike and run. Or if you like Chris McCormack, just for the bike, because we all know he's going to pull out in T2 like he did in Barcelona. Macca is here alongside TD, and Annie Emerson joins us as well from the lovely newly painted room. And she's got black on, looking very sleek. Annie, I'm going to start with you. How are you?
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I'm in marathon training mode now, as should Timmy be as well. We got a Super League team to go to Edinburgh at the end of May. So I sort of got cracking. Yeah, I did about 30 kilometres over a two-day period, which is probably more than I've done in a month. So hopefully I'm not going to peak too soon. But all good, thanks, Will.
It's in May, mate. That's a long time.
The end of May.
It's the end of May, the 28th of May. Yeah, I haven't even told my wife that we're doing it.
No, I haven't told my husband.
So thanks,
either.
Annie. If she listens to this, I'm in trouble.
Oh my god. No, it's not worth it.
We all know that Tim's wife doesn't listen to the show, so we should be fine. TD, for those that are tuning in on YouTube, let's see the ugly sweater. Oh, it's not too bad, to be fair.
It's nice.
I've already worn it once. I was in the West End on the weekend at a show with my kids, and we all went in our Christmas jumpers, a bit of high tea at Claridge's, so I thought I'll put it on for the Christmas edition. We got the I don't know if you can see. Can you see the elf on the shelf up there on the wine bottle? The elf, Albert the Elf. I love Albert the Elf. Oh man, keeps the kids in line. Yes.
But can you it's such, doing the elf on the shelf is you've really got to focus. Like I have trouble with that, and like every morning they wake up, the elf hasn't moved. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not an elf handler. I can't tell when the magic's going to happen. And I'm like, again, I've forgotten. I always forget.
It is the 6th, but I'm fine for the first 12, 15 days. Yeah. It's those last 10 days that I'm like, oh, he's already been here. He's already done that. He's done that. And then if he doesn't move, they're like, does that mean I've been really bad? Does that mean? And I'm like,
yes.
Oh my God. So you just say he's having a break. He's having a break. He's having a rest. No.
And Macca, you're in Bahrain. Obviously, it's race week for the Bahrain Victorious team in the Middle East Championships, and all the big stars are there, including your good self.
Yeah, just arrived. I flew in from South Africa. Flew in with, met in Dubai. I was with Christian and Georgia Taylor-Brown and Jan, and we all sat in and flew over and touched down. They've gone off to a school, and I'm here with you guys. So it's perfect.
And you're all so you all sit back in seat 156K, like with the common people, or that's not what happens?
I'm out the middle one. I take the middle seat. Yeah.
You like to touch people?
Yeah, I prefer middle seats. Yeah.
There's no middle seats in first class, mate. They're all ones and ones. Apparently, so I've been told. Anyway, I've walked through it on the way back to the peasant class.
Sorry, sir.
We're going to touch a few topics today. We're going to talk Abu Dhabi. Obviously, it's happened. We haven't talked about it yet. We're going to have a little look back at some of the best moments of the season from Super League Triathlon, and then what it means for 2023. We've got a few announcements around that as well. And the Global Triathlon Awards are on in January in Nice. There are 11 categories. We're going to spitball about who we think could win the big prizes. Tim Don is one of the judges for that. But we're going to start with Abu Dhabi. And as we look back on it, and as I look back on it, as I think about it, the only person I can really think about is Flora Duffy, because she won that head-to-head, her 4th title. She's now the most successful female Olympic distance triathlete. She also has the gold medal. She also has the Commonwealth Games gold medal. She beat Georgia Taylor-Brown in all of these races. She's absolutely the nemesis for GTB. But Flora has just had, when she turns up at the big events, doesn't she, Tim?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, she raced with intent. She was first into the T1, and then at 5K up a slight hill, she put a kind of like, she just floated away. She's actually had a rough year by her standards. She went to 2 70.3s. One, she got COVID. One, her bike didn't turn up. She didn't race so well early in the year. But as you said, the big races, she's just she just prepares so well for them, and she's got such confidence, and her execution is just fantastic. So you gotta feel. I mean, Mac will appreciate this. Feel like Georgia Taylor Brown is a bit like Brad Bevan, always the bridesmaid to Simon Lessing. Oh.
Except for in Super League, obviously. Except for in Super League.
Except for Leafs, well, that's it. We need to get Flora on one of those teams. Get her out there.
Well, Brad did dominate the series in Australia, so it is very similar, you know.
Exactly the same. He won everything till Courtney came.
It is funny, though, how Georgia finished second in the Commonwealth Games. She finished second in the Olympics, although she did have a flat tyre at the back end of that bike and still ran away back, which was epic, but it's still a silver medal, and then finished a second in this one as well. I wonder whether she just had those first two in the back of her head and knowing that Flora was going to be so strong again, especially coming off the back of Bermuda. Annie, what did you think of that race overall? Obviously, it came down to the last 5Ks as we hoped it would.
Yeah, Georgia will have her time for sure, I think. I mean, she's 28. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know, Flora, I think by her own admission, well, she's already said that she's going to go to Paris and then after that work out what she's doing. But I think Georgia has the talent. She has the weapons. I'm not sure quite what happened in Dubai. She looked cooked on the run in terms of the heat, I think. And Tim and I were commentating on that event. And she went out, she looked so strong for about the first kilometre and then she kind of lost it. I don't know if the heat prep hadn't gone as she'd wanted it to, but, she will win a lot of races for sure. If she stays in one piece and doesn't get injured, she's too big of a talent not to go on and dominate. And I think, don't forget, she had that period between, I know it's a while ago now, 2013, 2016, where she didn't race at all due to a really serious foot injury, which she thought would end her career. So I think she's just, what we're seeing now is okay. She's won Super League 2 years in a row now, silver medal at the Olympics. She's on the rise still. Whereas it's safe to say that Flora is invincible, we know, but she's got to be at the absolute peak. And considering sort of, I guess, retirement at some point at 36, I think she is.
Considering the presidency of Bermuda or the prime ministership or the emir, I don't really know who's in charge over there, but whoever it is going to have Duffy at the end of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Flora's in charge. And another thing, we saw Taylor Knibb rocket up into third. She is superb again. She was strong out of the water. She biked like she does. And she's another name that we're going to be
crash
hearing
on the bike.
Yeah, that is true. But she's going to be another name we hear more and more of, Macca, as the years roll by.
Oh, without question. And she came off the back of that 70.3 world title, right? So, Flora and her both came into that series. But when you watch Taylor Knibb, she doesn't seem to have that acceleration on the bike that Flora Duffy has. She sort of moves out wide and she sort of chugs this big gear. So the girls seem to be able to jump on and cover that in this short course racing, where in that longer distance racing, I think she's more set for that. But she's so young, so talented. I think Flora and Georgia have her measure still because of that tactical racing that you see in the short course racing. But she's a huge shaper of races now. If you're not in front, if you get out of the water behind Taylor Knibb, you're in trouble because she's going to do a lot of that front work that keeps those groups away. But I was so impressed with Flora Duffy. I thought after that fifth place finish at 70.3 Worlds, I was expecting a lot more from her in that progression up in distance. And I was like, wow, okay, she struggles with that longer distance. But when you put her in those shorter distances, she's unstoppable. Her swim's impeccable. Her positioning on the bike is remarkable. She attacks and takes some of the girls with her, and her run is first class. She is. Paris is 2 years away, but I don't see any drop off. Age does weary them, but Flora just seems to be like a fine wine, getting better and better.
Well, she's going to plan her way through it too, so she's going to turn up when she's going to be ready to go on that particular day. There's no doubt about it. She seems to manage to do that. It does seem like when you say Taylor Knibb, I start thinking about all the young people that are dominating in longer course racing now, and I wonder when that happened because it feels like it just happened in the last 2 years, where everyone's like, "Nah, I can be 23 and also do this." It's not like an old man's game anymore.
I think that was lockdown.
Yeah.
The older men, the older men turned to wine, and the younger men turned to pain caves. Let's be honest. Oh my days! But no, you're right. It has. In a blink of an eyelid, the average age I think at Kona for the top 10 was something ridiculous, like 25. Well, in 2019, it was like 32. I mean, and I can't see it. I can only see younger guys coming through. I can't see any. There weren't many older guys except for Jan who weren't there, who would have brought that age up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, how about Jan now? He's not going to be able to go to Kona again. Is he going to go along until 2024 just so he gets a shot back at it? Tim, do you think?
Why not? I mean, Dave Scott was 42 or 41 when he got on the podium at Kona, his last podium. Jan's, I think, 40 at the moment. So if the body's there, you know how strong mentally he is. You know, he has got lots of interests outside of, you know, winning, but he doesn't race. He races to win. And if that desire's there, I think Nice is going to suit him. It's a kind of backyard race for him, coming from, you know, based in Europe. You know, he's a mountain boy. He's moved to Andorra. I think if he does well at Nice, I've got no reason to see him not coming to Kona.
Didn't he say, he kind of said 2023 would be his last one, so maybe he changed his
mind. But Ironman said Kona was going to be Kona. Yeah.
That's exactly.
I think he was expecting that last one to be in Kona. I think he wanted his swan song to be in Kona, so that I actually literally asked him that question about an hour ago as we got off the plane. I said, how did you take the news of Nice? You know, does it suit your style of racing? The big climb up, that there's two big solid climbs on that. There's the climb up to grass, and there's that Col de Vence, which is a proper legitimate climb. And he sort of balked at that, to be honest. He's like, I said, yeah, we live in Andorra, like it's a big crowd. I said, look at the timing of the event now. You know, a lot of the guys that you were looking at racing and be coming off this World Championship Series race, it's literally 1 week turnaround. So, and he's like, look, to be quite honest with you, I was hoping to race in Kona, and I wanted to race Christian. And so I think he's just getting his head. I'm sure he's going to be remarkable at it. I think he's going to love the run. He's going to love the course. He's such a professional. I think he'll prepare for it. But I think he's disappointed that he didn't. I think in his head, this is his last year. Maybe he will extend it, but he wanted that opportunity to race Christian and Gustav in Kona, and that would have been a beautiful swan song for him. And I think he feels a little bit, not robbed, but a little bit bummed about that.
Are they going to go to Kona next year? I mean, to Nice now? The Norwegians, given that they're going to be focusing on Paris, but obviously Christian will just go anyway because he just does.
I haven't know. I'm assuming they will. That was the
Pontevedra's like 2 weeks after, is it? Which is the grand final. So, but as you said, if anyone can do it, I mean, they did the opposite. They went from World 70.3s to Bermuda within 8 days, Kona to Bermuda to Abu Dhabi. So.
Man,
Christian can do it for sure.
We've gone way off track. Well, let's talk about the men in Abu Dhabi. Because the season,
when don't we go?
Hey? Totally, completely different. There's 7 minutes in or something, and we've gone completely left field. That's my fault. Let's go back to Abu Dhabi, where the men, after the season started in 2021, then it comes down to a match race between everyone thought the Falcon and Alex Yee, Hayden Wilde and Alex Yee, and then Leo Bergier just does like this beautiful Stephen Bradbury effort. Which is an Australian reference for coming from nowhere to sweep his way to his first gold. And the things that had to work in his way for it to work for him were so slim. And then Jelle Gaines and Matt Hauser both did the job for him by relegating our two guys by 1 position each. And suddenly he's the world champ. Annie, first thoughts on that? What an incredible race it was in the end. And Leo just stayed focused no matter all the action was going on behind him.
Well, it's one of the most exciting finals that we've seen because there were so many possibilities. I didn't discount Leo Berger going into it. He's so consistent. What I did wonder was he capable of winning, because he hadn't won a WTS up until that point, but he had been consistent and he knows where to put himself in the swim and on the bike. He's so strong in that department, and he's very reliable on the bike. He keeps out of trouble. He does all the right things. And he looked the best that we've ever seen him on the run. I mean, he didn't put a foot wrong from start to finish. Whereas, a lot of them we know were overcooking. They were getting tired. They were getting really hot. It was a really disappointing day for Alex Yee and Hayden Wilde, but they're both such young athletes, So I don't know. The end result didn't totally shock me, I don't think. But yes, you're absolutely right. A lot needed to happen for Leo to win, and it did happen. So we know that's racing, right? That you can only do what you can do, and then the others play a big part in the overall positionings. But a brilliant men's final.
Yeah, he definitely owes Matt and Jelle a couple of beers as well for doing what they did, especially Jelle Gaines, who sprinted his way to that third position and denied him. But Macca, your thoughts on that race? It's so good to see World Triathlon Racing come down to some jeopardy like that. Sometimes it's not always like that, especially throughout the race, and sometimes there's a 10K run at the back end.
Look, I was, you guys calling. I was so enthralled by the entire event because I didn't pick Leo to win it. I love Leo Bergier. I knew he was in the hunt. I really thought Hayden was going to come into some good form. I thought Matty Hauser, until Matty Hauser had the worst swim of his career in that race. I could not believe it. I was watching him as he entered, and I'm like, he is out of this. And then he delivered one of the first or second fastest runs. Matty Hauser he'll be going home checking that result as well, thinking, if only things were different, I could have potentially won it. But I love the event. Leo is a well-deserving world champion, a humble guy, an amazing guy to be around, and just couldn't be happier for him. And I think, as you said, Annie, Alex and Hayden have a lot more years ahead of them, but do not discount Matt Hauser. Matt Hauser is showing he can now run over that distance.
Yeah.
And his swim is not there, and he's a guy that I'll be looking at for the season next year. And it's sort of coming in at the perfect timing as we lead into an Olympic Games. Matt Hauser is really coming of age.
Isn't he getting about 65% of every race perfectly correct? And then there's just something that he just hasn't quite got all the ingredients at the same time. But he's so close. He just has
5% is 99% wrong. Well, it is. He crashes. He goes to put his run shoes on when he should be going to put his helmet on. He crashes again, or he's behind a crash. He fell over in Abu Dhabi. He fell over on the run. He went flying out, and it's like, what? I mean that with all due respect to him. No disrespect to him. Sorry, but when he gets it right, as Macca said, I totally agree. He is. Yeah. He just needs to build that strength for that Olympic distance, which is definitely which he's doing.
Which is exactly how we had it was a great headline on superleaguetriathlon.com, was like, Hayden he mixed power with poise, and this is what Matt Hauser needs to do next year. He was smart, Hayden Wilde, in the way he went about it, and he harnessed his power at the right times, and that's why he was the overall champ, and he stayed out of trouble. And Matt Hauser has all that, but didn't quite get that sorted out. And speaking of Bergier, I mean, you remember, Mac, we were commentating from a child's playground in Singapore in 2018 when Leo Bergier ran without his shoes, or slipped out of his shoes and ran the entire race with them, and his feet were an absolute mess. And I thought, this is my kind of guy. I love this. His feet looked like it was horrible. It looked like he'd been tortured at the soles of his feet, and he just kept going. Morgan Pearson, huge run. That guy just keeps surprising everyone by doing what he's doing. Henry Schoeman was back in the mix as well, which I thought was awesome. You would see Henry over there right now in Bahrain. I mean, he's had a terrible year, Macca. He's had a terrible couple of years. He really needs to come back and have a big result this weekend.
He had a terrible event last week, and he's just pulled up sick. I just saw him.
No.
He's questioning whether he'll start. So I'm like, Henry.
How does that happen in 1 year?
He gets sick a lot. That guy.
Alistair told me that.
Yeah.
Alistair said he gets sick a lot a while back. And I said, really? He said he always seems to pick things up. He must, push to the limit all the time and keep his immune system suppressed. But he said, something, he felt a bit off in Clash Daytona last week. He got off the bike in the hunt and he just had nothing. He went backwards, and he said on the flight over here, he just went downhill, and boom, he's picked up a virus.
Oh, mate, I feel for him so bad. He's had a terrible time.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh dear, oh dear. One other, Annie?
No, just before we leave the men's race and Morgan Pearson, I mean, that guy, holy crap, that guy can run. I mean, I was just looking at the splits from that race, 29:15, by far the fastest. I mean, we know what Yellow Games can do in that kind of heat as well. That's a perfect course, perfect climate for him, and he was nearly 15 seconds quicker than him. I mean,
he doesn't look like he's going that fast.
He's got an interesting running technique, hasn't he? It's very on the toes. But he's a guy with a 101 half. That guy is seriously talented if he keeps himself together. but he's very emotional, isn't he? And I think that, that's sometimes maybe where he loses it. He's had a lot of stuff going on in his life, difficult stuff. But wow, God, I was blown away by that run. At one point, I thought he was going to get Léa Bergère because it did look like he was catching fast, and then he obviously blew. But anyway, I think we need to keep an eye on him next year.
Always, 100%. Now, for the first time, before we move on to a little bit more Super League, first time ever in the sport, there was a para-triathlon mixed relay on the Saturday morning of Abu Dhabi, which I think we should point out because it was really a landmark moment for para sport. So we had 9 teams line up from Australia, USA, France, Italy, and lots of those freshly minted world champs were part of those teams as well. And because it was such a logistical effort, I think it full props to World Triathlon for putting on something like that because, each of the 4 legs involved a 150 meter swim, 4.5K bike, 1.2K run, and then the officials. So obviously you need help to transition, etc. And then the officials would radio back to the pontoon to tell the next person to go. So it was like a one direction. It was insane, and I just thought I thought it was cool because obviously that's a hard thing to put together. So full props to World Triathlon for doing that and pushing the sport forward. Now we move on to the season review of Super League, and obviously it's been a little while now, and we've all had a chance to digest it and look back on what was an incredible year for Super League. It was the one first place that Flora couldn't take away from Georgia Taylor Brown. It was a great end in Neom as well. And for Georgia as well, back-to-back wins. But Taylor Spivey really pushed her the whole way. And then obviously they're on the final run together and it couldn't have been better. Couldn't have been scripted better for Georgia to come over the top of Sophie Caldwell at the back end. But just your thoughts on the women's chase in general. I think Taylor Spivey continually surprised herself with being in the mix with Georgia. But it still felt like Georgia had it all to lose. Like she had to have a bad day, even when they came in at 56 points apiece to do that. I don't know whether that's the presence of Georgia Taylor Brown or just her pure dominance within races. Tim, I'll start with you on that one. But last year she came from behind at the death and stole it from Jess Learmonth, but I feel like she had one hand on this first place from when we arrived in London, even though she had never won a race before we got there.
No, I totally agree. I think, we know she's so good over those shorter distances. Whether she's off the front on her own, like we saw in Munich, or in a big pack or a small group, she doesn't have a weak link. And I think she was. I'm not sorry, but I feel for Taylor Spivey because she got second and she went into that grand final. She went into the final in Neom with equal points. Yet everyone was saying, well, Georgia's going to win it, and she under the pressure, she just it's just like water off a duck's back for Georgia. And the fact Jess wasn't there, and also Vicky Holland was quite prominent last year. There were quite a few other athletes. So I think it was kind of, as you said, she did have one hand on the trophy, but you have to deliver. And she did that. Cassandra Beaugrand didn't show up. She's a bit like Maddie Hauser. When she shows up, she shows up. But when she doesn't show up, she really doesn't show up. I think is a deserved champion and a very dominant season. But again, I think Taylor will definitely be building on that. And I expect her to be a lot closer in World Triathlon races and definitely Arena Games Super League next year.
Yeah, huge boost for her. And Macca, something Tim touched on there is when Cassandra doesn't show up, she really doesn't show up. Does she come away from this 4 or 5 races knowing, she's got so many weapons in her arsenal, but it didn't seem like this coming of age series for her because she was so tentative on the bike that she just kept getting left behind. So does she come away from that and go, gee, it was a great series, I did pretty good and I did really well on the run and the swim? Or does she go, what am I doing on the bike? How am I going to compete next year?
Yeah, well, I think the move to Loughborough is going to be a great one for her, really, to be quite honest. She needs to be exposed to that. She dropped the bike in Munich and that was it. We lost Cassandra Beaugrand. She definitely turned up in London, if you remember. She was in fighting form. Georgia Taylor Brown, going into London, was experimenting with altitude training in preparation for Paris. She'd just come out of a Font Romeu camp and she'd just come down, felt a little flat and sort of built through the series. She was much better in Munich, and if she didn't crash in Malibu, I think it would have been a shutdown there. But I think my 2 takeaways on the women's racing was Georgia Taylor Brown's progression through that series and knowing where she came and having the opportunity to be part of the team and talking to them pre-race about that was really, really cool. Cassandra Beaugrand being rattled on the bike so easily, that is a concern, and, the rain of Munich upset her and she just lost all confidence in the bike. At times I thought she wasn't even trying, she was too scared of the bike. So I think that move to Loughborough, training with some of the women up there and getting that confidence back, that skill level up on the bike that she's going to need to be successful. But you saw when we used her in the team dynamic to chase swim points or run points, she's the quickest swimmer and runner in women's triathlon right now. So fix the bike. You've got a woman that is one of the big favourites to win it in Paris. It'll be very, very difficult to beat on a hometown race. But they were good. And as you said, Taylor Spivey coming of age in the series. She's been part of Super League racing for so long. To see a win at home in Malibu was really, really cool. And to get a hand on that, to be in the big mix. Taylor's always been a girl that sits in 4th and 5th, and you always know she's there, but she was in the mix and she carried that pressure throughout the entire series. I thought she was remarkable as well. I thoroughly enjoyed the women's racing this year. It was really, really cool.
I completely agree. Annie, what do you think as well? You're right about Taylor always sitting in that 4th, 5th position. She was kind of like Rachel Klammer had that kind of role, and then Taylor Spivey took over that role for a couple of years, notwithstanding the 2018 win that she had in Mallorca, which I thought was then okay, now she's going to go on with it, but then she kind of went back. Well, COVID hit and everything changed, but a huge boost for her and just a great women's series overall to arrive at 56 apiece in the desert.
So just such a brilliant series throughout. And I think, another thing aside from the racing is the camaraderie with the athletes is amazing. I think what they take away from the series is huge, particularly some of the younger athletes in terms of dealing with that level of stress, because it's stressful racing, right? You cannot afford to make a mistake. The skills that they learn on the bike is just brilliant, and that's what's amazing about the series. Talking about Taylor Spivey, love her. She is such a lovely chick. That aside, that's so British, isn't it? They're so lovely. But she is genuinely a fab chick and really talented. And I think what was good to watch about her in Malibu particularly was that she taught herself she can do it. I still think that she's full of those self-doubts. She needs to believe that she's a winner, and I don't think she's quite got that yet, but surely Malibu would have helped her. It was great to see her in Abu Dhabi as well, just away from the series. Going into that, she was sick in Abu Dhabi, but still managed to have a really solid race. So she keeps herself together, but I think where she lacks is getting on the start line, and this is what Flora will do, Jess will do, and Georgia Taylor-Brown, and they stand on that start line knowing that they can win, and I don't think that's quite in Taylor's head yet. I might be wrong, I might be speaking out of turn. She's got the skill and the talent to do it, but she's just got to take it there on the start line and believe that she can do it. But overall, a brilliant series. And like you said, well, it came down to the wire, and that's what we want. You don't always want a runaway victor from the start of the series, and we didn't have that. So it was, Georgia Taylor-Brown, it was hers to lose. We know that, but they took it all the way to the final, which was great.
We should mention the men as well. Obviously, it was a bit of a runaway with Hayden Wilde in the end, but he had to make sure that he didn't make any mistakes all the way through. And what a year he's had. Commonwealth Games, obviously, was there and thereabouts. And then in the WTCS, he's had podiums there and obviously the SLT title. Hayden Wilde's had a year where he has been one of those guys that has taken things on with varying success, but mostly has nailed it. And he's really come on a bit. And then second part to that is obviously Johnny Brownlee stepping up on the podium in Neom, and Sophie Caldwell doing the same thing as well by coming in and having great final races. And Tim, from your perspective, men's overall had some great names throughout and some great battles, but we did miss a few names too that we hope to welcome back in 2023.
Yeah, it'd been great. We saw Alex in London, but again, it wasn't a full fire in Alex. He's decided to focus on the World Triathlon, so it'd be great to have him back again. And, Johnny, he missed Malibu. He flew out there and got ill, the poor fella. So, to have him, that could have changed his overall position. He could have been fighting for second, maybe even, fighting Hayden right up there. But yeah, Hayden Wilde controls what he can control, and he's so good at looking after himself. It's the execution of the race. It's his preparation. I'm gonna get shot in the foot here, but he keeps himself to himself. He's not always with the boys, as I'm sure he's going to correct me for that. But I love the way he goes, and to prepare for the grand final, he flew from Saudi, I think, to Abu Dhabi or Dubai, and he was there not on his own, but he wasn't there with a training group. Georgia went there, but she went there with Simone Ackerman and a few other athletes, but he was more on his own with local athletes. And it's going to be like we talk about Matty Hauser, but Matty Hauser's got to up his game in every race because, not just the physicality of it, but his tactical awareness, his preparation as well, but it would be great to see Alex Yee back there next year. But for me, like Hayden Wilde was just absolutely phenomenal. He really didn't put a foot wrong.
No, he did not. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So I can see a lot of nodding heads. So I guess I move. Yeah. Well, you're right. He runs his own race. He spends hours doing. He did some incredible Lego while we were on tour. Gee, I haven't seen anyone put that much effort into Lego. And then he's like, "Oh, can you get me a Lego when you're down the shops?" And I'm like, "Okay, what do you want?" He has a Ferrari. And I went down there. It was like €400. No way! I'd expecting Lego to be like €15 or something because plastic blocks. It gets real serious now. There's like engines and suspension, and I'm like, mate, no, not a chance. No way at all. What can be improved for season 2023? Formats, venues. I mean, what do you guys want to see in 2023 that's different? Super League evolves constantly. We're never standing still in terms of what we provide, and I think it's important that we, and you can see it in Michael Dolph's letter on the website at the moment, is that it's important to have that huge range of different conditions, waves, no waves, desert, heat, cobblestones, the whole thing, tight, twisty courses, big, open, windy stuff. We're doing that. What else do we do, Macca? What's the next thing? Like, what do you want to see changed?
I think I'd like to see a team race, actually a relay as one of the. We probably need a few more venues, but I think with the team racing, I'd like to see that an evolution of that to come into the actual overall racing. I don't know how that would affect the individual standing, but I did love the team dynamic. I'd love to see an additional athlete, maybe an under-19 athlete brought into the team, or under-23 athlete to give, a team of 5 on the men and 5 on the women. So you have 2 GC races and probably 3 discipline races per se that you can use as a team manager. I think there's room for that. Maybe, I love the enduro format personally. I think it is the most amazing format that we have. It's so brutal, it's so difficult, it's so testing, and we could look at what we do with all the other formats. When Super League started, before the team dynamic came into it, was those formats were developed to showcase the skills of individual athletes and give them opportunities as an individual. But now we can use the team, and there's a team element to this racing. We're able to sacrifice athletes. Maybe that's something we do look at what we can do with these formats to tweak them to give more opportunities around that team dynamic. Because, speaking to all the athletes, they love the team part. I think it's fantastic. It's a big point of difference within the sport. And it brings, as you said earlier, Annie, this camaraderie that we had as a team. It was cool. And it's something we don't experience in the sport. And I think a lot of people, just being in South Africa with a whole bunch of these junior triathletes, they're all Super League. They follow Super League. They're like, it's hard watching anything else because they all want to get into this team. How do I get in a team? And I just love seeing all these young athletes like Jamie Riddell and Chase McQueen and these athletes get the opportunity to showcase their skills. I'd also like to bring the jerseys back personally. I think being able to highlight the best swimmer, best biker, best runner on the course is something that we could do. But
yeah,
I think we're heading in the right direction. To have 2 years of a full series has been awesome. And, post-COVID is, we always sit there and forget COVID was only 18 months ago, right? So to be where we're at and to be able to talk about it is really, really amazing. So, yeah, a long way to go, but really happy with where we're at.
Yeah, agreed. I think the team thing allowed some of the people who were ready to do it it gave them cover to actually get a bit mouthy and competitive with each other, whereas they wouldn't if they were just individual athletes. But they were like, "Well, I'm part of the Sharks, and the Sharks are going to kick the Eagles' ass, etc." Whereas they wouldn't be like, "I will beat you in the swim," but they could do it under the cover of the team, which I think was kind of cool. Annie, what about you? Anything that can be changed or improved or refined, or we can just get rid of?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of gonna go with Macca a bit. Everything he said. I think a team relay would be amazing. I love the enduro. In terms of venues, I loved all of them. I think Munich was a little bit disappointing this year just because the weather didn't help, and Ed Sheeran as well sort of cocked it up from everyone by having to...
Classic Ed.
Classic Ed. I mean, come on. So the bike course was really compromised, I thought there. But, no, I loved it. I'm with Macca in the sense that seeing 2 full seasons go ahead really successfully, watching the development of all the athletes has been amazing. But yeah, a team event would be awesome. Hadn't thought of that one. Yeah.
We should get whoever's in the top 3 in the swim, bike and run.
Relay, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like a mixed relay.
Yeah, and I like the jerseys. I think the jerseys are great because there's real pride and it kind of stands out. There's real pride. And I think when you're wearing that jersey, you're probably more likely to go, I don't know, fight for it. I mean, although now with the teams in, I think every athlete is fighting for every point anyway. But yeah.
When I think of Vince in the pink.
Yes,
he owned that pink. He looked good in the pink.
Yeah.
As much as it pains me to say it. What about you? What about you, TD?
Yeah, no, I love the sound of a team relay, a mixed team relay. That'd be great. And I think we forget, there were 40% of the races this year were at brand new venues. We had 2 new venues, and it was the way the Super League handled it. Toulouse had its logistical issues because it was a true town centre race. London is, but it's very a unique area. West India Key, they did a great job there. Going all the way to Neon was massive. One thing I do think we definitely need, VAR for the bloody swim starts. We need... There's
never any controversy around the VAR, is there?
We need some VAR. It's working perfectly in the football. I saw the Germans aren't complaining about it.
It's only been 5 years.
And I also think we somehow need to get across the passion the athletes have, the teammanship, because I think the viewers on the TV, on the internet, they're just seeing the team results, but we really need to find a more complete way to educate everyone watching how important the team category is. When we watch cycling, we know everyone, when watching the Tour de France, we know when Ian Stannard's on the front, he's probably the strongest rider on virtually everything except the steepest climbs, but there's no way he's going to win. And we need to get that, maybe not that exact example, but how important the teams are. Because I do think we're inside this bubble and the athletes are and the sponsors and we get it. And I think we need to find a way to better get that across because it is, everyone loves it. You've got the best athletes in the world. I'm not saying they don't care about the individual, but they're going, well, if I get this and this and this, we're going to jump up to 3rd overall and we're ahead of the shot. And I think we just need we need to work on that side of things a lot more.
I think you're right on the storytelling. We do need to. It's just hard within the broadcast to be able to fit everything in.
Yeah.
But you're right. When you see a Ryan Fisher just bury himself for 11th and get the Scorpions home by 2, it just gets lost in the mix a little bit. Or Emma Jeffcoat just hammering a swim in order to get those points, and that's why the Scorpions ended up coming out on top on the day.
Yeah.
So
Cassandra Beaugrand hated Munich, yet she swam and ran like a pure team player, things like that. I think
she listened
I think
to MG. She listened to MG. That's what happened.
Yeah, I would
screaming at him.
Yes.
He was this far from her face. He was this far away, just going, "You run like the clappers," and she was just like, "Oh yes, okay, fair enough too." Okay, real quick, 1 male and 1 female athlete you'd like to see join or rejoin the series in 2023, and there are tons, right? Because we're looking at people that have been there before but are coming back, like Caddy Zafiris or Leo Bergier or Flora Duffy or Christian Blumenfeld or Vince or Van Riel or Jess Learmonth. I mean, there's tons. If you could pick 1 man and 1 woman to come back at the behest of all the others, who would they be? Starting with you, Macca. You can only pick 1 man and 1 woman.
Okay, I want Vincent Louis back. I want to see him back to his best and see how he goes up against the new breed. And on the women's side, I'd love to see Flora Duffy do a full series. Just for I think she'd shape the entire racing, and I think she'd really showcase just how skillful she is as a racer.
All right, Annie Emerson, 1 man and 1 woman coming to rejoin the series in 2023, all other things being equal.
Okay, Jess Learmonth, obviously. Love to see her back, fully fit. And can I say during Conics as well? I'd like to. I mean,
Yes.
he raced one event. He raced in Toulouse. That was a brilliant course. Loved that one, and I'd love to see him come back and do more racing. He's a massive, massive talent.
Tim, one man and one woman.
I want to see the future. Connor Bentley, he was the World Under-23 champion. I think he came out to swim ahead of Jamie Riddle. He was off the front with Jamie Riddle on the bike. Then they got caught, and then he ran away from everyone. I want to give him a chance. He's got another year or 2 years in the Under-23. And I'm going to go the total opposite. I've heard a rumor. Gwen Jorgensen is going to try and make the team for Paris. I would love to see her see what she can do. I think she's a different athlete, different woman to what she was, having 2 children, going to marathon, track running, 5K. She's a mature athlete. I would really like to see her execution of the race and how she goes about it. I think they could be two great additions.
All right, big news. Everyone hates Katie Zafiris and Christian Blumenfeld. No one wants
No,
Blumenfeld
I'd
back.
love Katie to come back.
No one wants Berger back.
No.
No one wants Martin Van Riel. Martin Van Riel, who is that? I've forgotten him.
Will,
God,
who do you want to
Martin,
see,
yeah.
mate? Who do you want to see?
Katie Zafiris and Christian Blumenfeld, mate.
Oh, so not Martin then? Oh, right.
I hate Martin.
Yeah, Leo. You don't like Martin.
Can I sit on the sidelines and throw bombs without getting dragged into the mire? Is that all right? Is that all right? Can I force you into a corner?
Collateral
and
damage, man. Collateral damage.
Don't even know who Martin Van Riel is anymore. Although he's just released this new set of he's got a kit, and it's actually he's gone with loungewear. Everyone else is like, this is my new thing. He's got pink jumpers. It's all the whole thing. It's quite good. I don't hate it. I messaged him on Instagram and said, give me a pink jumper. No response. So he's cut. You're cut, Martin. You're out. I don't have any power whatsoever. Now, before we move on from this, Arena Games expands next year. 4 events across 6 weeks. Real momentum for this and further legitimising this as an Olympic option, as an esports option moving forward. We're going to go to 4 places and it's going to be over a 6-week period. So it's going to be in Montreal, and then to Switzerland, and then to Singapore, and then to London. And it's going to be, if you're going to win this thing, you are going to earn it, Macca.
Oh yeah, without question. It's even faster than the racing we just watched the Super League, which is hard to imagine. So yeah, it's great to have 4 events. It was a great sort of season last year, and watching Beth Potter do so amazing and use that momentum to push into her season. But yeah, 4 races is going to be tough. The Cersei event in Switzerland will be an amazing venue with Matthias Hecht, who used to do triathlon. He's got a great facility there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the racing. It's a funny one to call. I love calling those icons on the screen.
No, you don't. You hate it. You hate it.
I'm like, who's that?
You hate it because they're kind of they're just cruising, and then you go and see the picture of and then you see the real life version, and someone's vomiting a kidney, and it's just not fair, is it? It's just not fair. They always look so composed, the avatars. But you'll be in Timbuktu,
just like my avatar when I race.
Is that right? I run behind you. Actually, look more like the avatar than anybody else that I've run with. There's no question about that. It's going to be is this got a future, this Arena Games format? Because we see it. It was totally a pivot for COVID, and then it suddenly was actually, this is actually really cool, And people have said to me, I just watched this thing where they did the thing with the Zwift, and it's a whole different audience, basically, who are appreciating what this is, and I think that's the beauty of it. In a lot of different ways, and it worked better than we ever thought. So suddenly we've got our own season, Tim.
Yeah, I think it was born out of COVID, and the minds that put it together it's just fantastic. And I think now you've got coaches going, okay, how can we get ready for the Arena Games, do a few WTSs, the Olympic test event, and then get ready for the Super League. It is becoming a staple. I think the fact that World Triathlon have got behind it, the athletes can get World Triathlon ranking points towards their Olympic ranking. I really believe that I think it could be in Long Beach in the Los Angeles Olympics. I really, I think, the development that Super League have put behind that, working on calibration tools for the treadmills, and better accuracy with the no drafting effect within the Zwift. And again, we've got 2 new venues, so 50% new venues. People want the sport. It's not just us, the people in the bubble outside there. It's great coverage. It's exciting to watch. Yeah, so I'm all in for it. And having raced it, not a chance would I do that again.
It does look
horrible. Too hard.
Actually.
It's too bloody hard.
It looks disgusting.
It makes Super League look like Iron Man. It's that fast. It's insane. I love it.
How much faster and shorter can it get? We're going to do a 60-second race. We have to do everything in 60 seconds. What about you, Annie? I mean, you've been on the pool deck for most of these events.
All of them, yeah.
The other thing it does, I think, is really promote a different style of athlete, like guys like an Aurelian Raphael, or even at the other end of the scale of just Nieschlag, who just excel in this pool swim and obviously in these special treadmills, which will be refined again for 2023.
I think there'll be the purists out there going, "Oh, what's this all about?" But it's triathlon, but it's totally different. I think it is exhilarating. I think it's unpredictable. I think it is the atmosphere when you're in a venue is absolutely brilliant. I love it. I would have personally hated it. I think I would have been absolutely crap at it. It is absolutely all out in the red. It's mad, but I love it. I think it's great racing. I'm with Tim. I think, and I know Super League have invested a whole lot of money on the technical side of it, which does have to be improved because we have had technical issues previously. So I just think, it's the way forward in triathlon. It is amazing. Absolutely.
Let's get the team thing in there. Let's have a mixed team relay.
Yeah. It's not triathlon. What Super League are trying to do is not replace triathlon. It's completely different. It's another branch of triathlon.
Innovate or die.
It's the evolution. Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, no, can we just slow down with the innovation for one season? Like, can we just just sit and just go, let's just take a breath and do what we did before? No, not a chance. It never happens.
What's the stack height on your shoes, Will?
What's that?
What's the stack height on your shoes?
Well, let's talk about that. Right, so before we get to the Global Triathlon Awards, which is going to round out the show, Annie, are you still there?
I'm here. I'm just moving locations.
Oh, you're moving locations. All right.
It's like when you have to share the house with your husband and he needs to do a call.
Oh,
so
look at that. Annie's showing off because she has more than one room in a house. Look at you, fancy pants. Macca always has one room in his house because he's always in a hotel room. Have you ever noticed that? It's just a different hotel room every time.
It's always somewhere glamorous and nice. It's awesome. We're always travelling. It's great.
That's true. We're going to get to the Global Triathlon Awards in a second, but I want one thought from each of you on each of these, the news wrap, if you like, right? So we're going to hit a few topics real quick. We don't have much more time left in the show. I want to get to the Global Triathlon Awards. But the Kona decision to go back and forth, we've kind of touched on that already. Tim, you've given your thoughts, but Annie, what do you think about the Kona decision to go away from Kona, and will it stop there? Will we get to a point where they go around to different venues? Is this just a stepping stone? What do you think?
I think it's absolutely the right decision. I think, Kona is just iconic. It's historical. It's where it all began. But the stuff that I've heard about, the cost of, for people to get there is outrageous. It excludes so many people. For me, I think it's a completely different race taking it to Nice. But Nice, I've raced there. I've raced over the original international long course event. It's a stunning, stunning venue. It's tough. It's completely different racing to Kona, that's for sure. I guess the swim and the run are pretty similar, but the bike, as we were talking about previously, Macca, it's completely different. It's a different athlete that will race that, I think, in terms of how technical it is. You've got to not just race in a straight line. You've got to know how to descend. We all know what the descents are like there in Nice. We've all been there, and climbing as well. So... Oh, okay. Well, you'll get there one day.
January, mate. January. I'll take you up the
climbs. Be there. I will be there with you.
I'll take you up the climbs. We can do a lap of the course, the full 180.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
We'll be great at that. But it was time for change. Absolutely.
It'd be snowing at the top.
I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that I probably agree with your points.
I think the only mistake they've made, I think it's a fantastic idea to swap venues. I think every second year should go back to Kona, but do not separate the men and women. It should be both on the same course each time. I think every second year should come back to Kona, give other athletes the opportunity to showcase their skills. I hated Kona. I might have won the thing. I hated the place. It's the historical home of triathlon. It's where Ironman racing started, but it suits a certain style of athlete, and it's unfair. And I believe this is the right decision for the sport, for everything. You need to go back every second year, but don't split men and women. Let's both go to the same place at the same time.
100% agree with that.
Don't you want to have the women have a separate race? So the whole point of it was the two-day racing's too hard for Kona because everyone hates it. That's the point, right? Whatever.
Maybe, but or they just do it the way they used to, right? Like we've always had. It's always worked for 40 years. We had one day they still have a separate race. Okay, it's not a separate day, but it's still a separate race. I did enjoy this year's different coverage of each event, but no, I think no.
Okay.
No,
Let's see what happens this year with the coverage. Will they get equal coverage? You know, are all the global endemic sponsors going to turn up? Are they going to double their budget? Exactly. You know, I don't know, a bicycle manufacturer going to do a big Chabot in Nice and a big one in Kona? Are the shoe manufacturers that are, you know, is it going to be? Is one going to be more diluted? Are people, you know, this is specifically for the pros and that side. You know, I totally agree. I think it's inevitable. It has to move. I don't like Kona either, but I think splitting the men and women, I think they could have found a different way, maybe, to do it so they can both race in Nice this year and Kona the year after. Cut the age group field down, make it harder for them. Don't only have a roll down to top 10 in a qualification race. Western Australia, if you finish 11th and the roll down hasn't gone, you can't go, to keep that age group standard higher. I think we saw the lowest standard ever. Not the top end, but the tail end. More athletes finishing in the last 3 hours than ever before because the qualification period. Yes, going well.
Yeah, the boys.
Especially with your course knowledge in Nice. And again, what about the after party? How's that going to go down?
Total sausage fest at the after party. Massive sausage fest. No good. Terrible. Speaking of WA, Max Newman missed Ali Brownlee's record by 1 second. How about that? That's disgusting.
And he was going for it. It's not like he didn't realise he was going for it. Oh.
Good year from that guy, though. He has really had a year, hasn't he? Fourth in Kona, yes.
Validates Kona 100%, I think, because that validates his Kona in terms of it was a proper world-class performance, Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on from that quickly. World Triathlon Board ratified the new competition rules for 2023. There's a couple we want to pull out. The new maternity policy will freeze the rankings of athletes in terms of competition entries from the moment they announce their pregnancy until their kid's 2 years old, which I think is absolutely outstanding. So they get to come back in after 2 years at the same place that they went out. Touching a helmet locking mechanism is now forbidden before a bike is racked. That's the Hayden Wilde rule. After all that, Hayden got denied his appeal at the Commonwealth Games. WT will follow the rules implemented by World Athletics that include the use of customised platform shoes. So Gustav Eden couldn't be like 11 inches taller than what he was in your shoes, Tim Don. And also the aero bars are gone. The Vasco Velasa aero bars are gone as well, except for a mixed team relay. Thoughts in general on that? Annie, we'll start with you on any of those you want to pull out really quick before we move on.
It's an interesting one with the aero bars being removed. I'm not, in WTS racing, I quite like them. I'm not sure why they're moving them. I don't know what's their reason. That would be an interesting one to find out. The helmet thing, I guess rules. Lots of rules coming in. What's that all about?
Rules, and more rules. What about the shoes?
I'm not. The shoes I agree with because Tim was explaining to me what they'd done and he showed me some pictures what they'd done with Gustav Eden's shoes and I must admit I was kind of like, really? So I think it has to be a more level playing field and we know it's not really with the shoes.
It's level, it's just 3 inches higher, the same level. It's a flat playing field, it's just gone up a bit.
For Gustav and anyone sponsored by Adidas.
That's true, that's true.
So I think that I'm all for that one. I'm not sure about the bars, the tri bars. I'm not sure why they brought that rule in. Who woke up one day and thought, let's get rid of them? Because I think they're quite a good, interesting addition. Timmy and I watching the race, it was cool. They worked out. They weren't affecting anyone. I don't know. Is it a safety thing?
Well, I
There's
guess
been
they
no
have
crashes. If there were lots of crashes, then fair enough. But that's why they took them out of the peloton in Pro Tour cycling, because they used to be mini Spinachis, if I think what they were called. And the peloton speed increased of an average of 3 or 4 kilometers an hour. But there were quite a few crashes. But we are seeing crashes, but that's nothing to do with people being on the aero bars. So I think it's quite. I love it. We need a rule for shoes. We can't have no rule. Is that the correct rule? It's the easiest rule to follow, the World Athletics rule. But we can't just have anything, because otherwise someone could turn up with a 4-inch stack and your leg length, your stride would be longer mathematically, regardless of the energy return of the foam and the double carbon plate, triple carbon plate, who knows? But we do need a rule for the shoe. And Hayden Wilde, that's not a new rule. That's just a reiteration of a rule. A clearer rule maybe. That original rule was for safety, because I've raced Benjamin Sampson and his helmet's always done up because it's so blooming loose. As he's running in transition, he just goes like that and throws it down. And people were riding and they were doing it up as they're a kilometre into the bike back in the day. So that rule initially was for a safety, but now I think they're just making it so we cannot have that incident again, or if we do, it's very clear cut.
Yeah, with those 4-inch stacks, Tim, you'd be like 5'8". You'd be like a long-legged human. Be huge. You'd be a huge, gigantic unit.
I'd be gazelle-like.
Oh yeah.
He'd be even quicker than he already is. We definitely wouldn't be running with him. Come on, man. We suffered enough trying to follow his feet.
I often think, what would my 28-minute 10K have been if I had carbon shoes? Woo!
Yeah.
I can't remember that, honestly, to be fair.
True.
Macca, any thoughts on any of those? Any controversial thoughts on any of those policies? Are you against the maternity policy, for example? Throw it out there, mate.
No, I'm not against any of it. No, I think it's fair, right? Like, that's a fair policy. But I agree on the shoes. I thought it was getting, after doing the whole sub-7 process and going through following those athletes and seeing how they manufacture those shoes and getting to know what is the technology behind it and how much it does benefit. It's and the thicker the stack, soon you'll be running in, like that'd be this big, right? You need some baseline, and it's the right move, and otherwise it'll just get ridiculous. We saw that in swimming a while back when they allowed, I remember
the speed suits
when they brought in that. Yeah, well, they brought in we went through it in triathlon, but they had the long, Ian Thorpe was wearing it, and then all started, and all records got blown out the door, and you're like, oh, come on, that's not really, It's
ruined it now, because they're still like asterisks over records, which we're continually having still in swimming now to this day. So maybe no one ever beats, the shoe stack era, the great shoe stack era, when they don't have that anymore. All right, Global Triathlon Awards. Tim Don is a judge, one of 5 judges on the panel. It's all been announced. You can see it at globaltriawards.com. Also, they're on Instagram and Facebook and all the general stuff. It's something that both Tim and I are involved in January, recognising and celebrating those involved in the production and development of the world's best sport, obviously. SLT leading the charge, also alongside World Triathlon and the Professional Triathletes Organisation, which is a feat in itself, I have to say, to get everyone to play nicely together, or just about everybody, and recognise the very best in the sport over 11 different categories. It's going to be like the Oscars for triathlon, which means it's going to be a lot less fun than the Oscars, and there'll be less scandal, because triathletes are very chill, right?
Are you going to get slapped in the face?
I might.
Get slapped in the face?
By who? Hey, Tim Don, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth, all right? That's the most important thing.
She's got lovely hair. She's got lovely hair, your wife.
You shut up. She's a real person, by the way, everyone. So there's 11 categories. Also recognising the best products: swim, bike and run, and nutrition and tech. There's 5 products: best male, best female, rookie of the year, and outstanding contributors as well. There's also a thing called Lifetime Kudos Awards, both for contributors outside of athletes and also for the pros. So you guys just spitballing here, because they're going to announce the shortlists, and then obviously we'll have the winners on the night, but the shortlists are coming up very, very soon. You can also buy tickets to this as well on the website. Go to Nice, meet Tim Don. It's going to be a really important day for you. Get dressed up. It's going to be lovely. There's going to be lots of pros there. But is there any products that you guys would pull out from swim, bike, run, nutrition, or tech that you go, particularly love this thing, and that I would nominate it if indeed anybody asked me, or if I put a nomination in before we go into the athletes. Macca, is there something you love? Like, for example, like for me, Morton products are great. I use Morton products all the time. I think they're better. It helps me in the little age group world that I live in.
When do you train hard enough to need any Morton stuff?
See, I'm going easy on you these days, Amy. I think we should go back and say, hey, I ran a 42-minute 10K today at lunchtime. I think that's pretty good for a guy who weighs 90 kilos. I'm 90 kilos, all right? I'm carrying around. It's like if you went for a run, but you were also carrying all your luggage for a trip.
32 kilos more than me. 32 kilos.
Exactly.
More than me. You need Mortons because you're burning a lot of energy being that size.
I am burning calories just sitting here listening to this rubbish. All right? Okay? So I represent the age group athletes out there that keep you guys in the manner to which you've become accustomed. So ignoring you, Emerson. Macca, is there any products that you enjoy specifically that you would nominate for any of these?
I don't use any of the products.
You don't use them?
I would nominate those Gustav Eden winning shoes. Even though they're getting
Outstanding tech.
They were remarkable. Voila, I got them and no one else has, and bang. It was a great play. So I'd nominate them and then remove them from.
A little bit like in F1, where like, you know, there was this in 2009. There was a team called Brawn that nobody gave any, and then they came out with like some tech innovation. They won every race with Jensen Button, and no one could catch up to them. So the whole thing was just a wipe for the whole year. It's the same kind of thing. Someone comes out with this one pair of shoes, and no one can match up with it. What about you, TD?
Still well. I don't know if I don't know if this isn't it's a future product. Maybe it's still in development. But have you heard of Race Ranger?
Is that the non-drafting thing?
Yeah, I think that could change the game to make a fairer, simpler process. So it's not just subjective that you're 12 meters, I'm 11.9 meters behind someone, or whatever the distance is. It's a laser on the front of the bike and a sensor on the back, and if you get within certain distance,
it flashes.
You blow up, collateral damage. I think it flashes, and you've got so long to either go past, and as soon as you pass it, it resets, or you can't drop back. And I think then the marshal has an iPad, and it says, "Oh, number 62's been in it 10 times, even though I haven't seen it." You can give them I don't know how far that is. I don't know if it's been in any trial races, but something like that is very innovative, and it's for the development of the sport, for cleaner racing. I don't think we could use it in age group racing because it'd just be like LEDs flashing everywhere.
Six people finish the race. It'll be like the Super Six rule.
It'd be like an epileptic fit, you know, like that strobe effect.
I saw a couple in Spain where there was just pelotons of people. It was just absolute madness. They ran the 70.3 on the same course, and it was no one would have finished. It would have been 0 finishes. What about you, Emerson? You could tell me about
One more is this is actually Alistair Brownlee's invention. It is the shower man on a run. Sub 7, sub 8. It's genius. I mean, it was innovating to make me go, well, not me, but to make Alistair go quicker. Without a doubt, that would work on certain courses. Like, absolutely.
It worked.
Really outside the box. Yeah,
it nearly delivered Skipper the most unlikely of victories, didn't it? So there you go.
Yeah.
What about you, Emerson? As someone who is, you know, incredibly athletic, fit, firing, mentioned right at the top of the show that she's running a marathon in a little humble brag, etc., etc. I
didn't start that. That was Michael's decision that we all had to run a marathon with him. He said, if you don't run a marathon...
You told everyone. I'll go tell my wife now.
Yeah, you told everyone. How are you, Annie? Well, did I mention I was running a marathon in May? Okay, cool.
I need to see where my husband is, because he doesn't know either. It's okay, he's not here. I'm with you, Will. I'm with you. So my best marathon was run with Morton's, and anything else I'd ever used used to just kind of make me feel a bit crap. And I think Morton's is a brilliant product. So in 2019, when I raced Edinburgh and did an okay time, Morton's got me through really well.
There you go.
I really like that product.
There you go. You and me, as elite athletes, we'll bond over this at some other point in the future.
We will.
Best male and best female. This is across anything from long course to Super League to Arena Games to World Triathlon to anything you want. challenge races. Who is your best male and best female of 2022? This is a good question, and there's lots of people who put their hand up for this one.
Okay.
Yep, go.
Gustav Eden wins Male Athlete of the Year for me. His PTO performances. You can split it between him and Christian, but Kona rules. And Taylor Knibb.
Okay.
She's killed it.
Not Flora Duffy, not Ash Gentle, not.
Nope.
Oh.
That Taylor Knibb's like a young kid who just went boom. She just decimated him at Worlds.
All right.
Next level.
All right. Tim, anything different?
Am I allowed to vote? Because I don't want to get into trouble.
I'm
one of the judges, aren't I?
Yeah.
So there's an amazing athlete, because you know what, the winners win. I think it's $100,000. So my wife Kelly is the best athlete.
Okay. Yeah. No, she is.
No.
Yeah. Hugo,
no,
best
I mean,
rookie of the year.
I agree with Maka. You can split them. Christian won 2 world titles, or he won 2 world titles, and he was 3rd in another world title. Gustav won 1 world title and didn't do. But Kona's Kona. But again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, Kona's Kona. Yet it's moving away from Kona. Gustav, Christian, maybe. I'll go with Christian because he's got the pressure of being the Olympic champion, of being expected to perform, while Gustav can just, float around in, he's not in much demand. And the women, Flora Duffy, like the pressure. She went to Buckingham Palace last week to get a dame. So that's the equivalent of a knighthood. That is just like, no one I think she's the second professional triathlete ever to get that award, behind Sarah Springman, who used to be a pro triathlete in the 80s and 90s, and she got knighted last year. So I think Flora Duffy.
Okay. What about you, Annie? Because you put, I guess when you talk about performances, Flora had some off performances. Ashley Gentle just won all the races, basically. If you're going to put her in there as PTO races, PTO
races.
I think, I love watching Ashley, move on from the short course, because she's so talented, but she just had that kind of dodgy swim most of the time. I think that she's such a talent. So
dodgy swim.
She would say it herself, right? That's where she really struggles. So talented on the bike and the run, but it's been great to see her succeed. But I think I definitely say I've got to go with Christian, because I know Kona is Kona, right? But the way he came back and did 70.3 and then put himself in the mix in the short course. How the hell do you do that, right? Yeah, okay, he didn't win a short course, but he was there or thereabouts in the races that he did, Abu Dhabi and Bermuda. And then in the women's, I'm just going to go with Georgia. She retained her title from 2022. I think Flora is a machine, but I don't think Georgia's had the easiest of years, as we saw when she came across the finish line in Abu Dhabi. I think she's had some stresses and stuff, and somehow or another she always has a smile on her face and always delivers something pretty special. She's got my vote.
All right, there's plenty more, and you're going to be announcing on globaltriawards.com the shortlist very, very soon of who we can see in Nice, which is going to be a real watershed moment for the sport as well, led of course by Super League Triathlon from the Genesis. And now with everybody on board. So looking forward to that one. Looking forward to getting over to freezing Nice for a few days away from this horrible, beautiful, warm summer weather here in Sydney. Can't wait for that one. Thank you all for being a part of this one. Nice long show, just to tick over an hour. Everyone's got stuff to do, and I appreciate everyone tuning in for another one. The Short Chute Show, of course, will be back as well in 2023 with plenty more. And we're going to have a new look as well for the show. So looking forward to that. Maka, thank you very much. Tim Don, as usual, thank you. And Annie Emerson, in both the rooms of your gigantic house, thank you as well. All right. Plenty more coming up across December and into the new year. More announcements, more news coming out of Super League Triathlon at superleaguetriathlon.com.